Will the Cubs get rid of Cody Bellinger? Will they add Jesus Luzardo? Will both of these moves cost them too much? We're going to talk about that right now here on the Setup Man. Hey, what's going on, Cubs fans, Setup Nation? It's me, Kyle Stanley, back from vacation, back in my office. Feel like I can really focus in on Cubs stuff now with the winter meetings last week. I was very excited to be going live with Lance Brzdowski, talking about Kyle Tucker, and then just a couple days later, we saw it come to fruition. So we'll be talking about that today, and we'll also be going live again with Lance this Wednesday at 4:30 Central Standard Time. Make sure that you are subscribed here. Make sure you're checking us out on Twitter. Make sure you're checking us out on Instagram, all the things, because I'm going to be talking about that and making sure that you guys are in the know about what we're going to be talking about with Lance on the show. A lot could happen between now and then. And what I want to make sure you do also not miss is tomorrow, we're going to be kind of doing something out of left field. I'm bringing in a good friend of Trevor Bauer. That's right. We're going to be talking about what is Trevor Bauer all about? Should the Cubs, should the MLB give him a legitimate shot back to the MLB? A lot of you are kind of rolling your eyes right now, right? Or a lot of you, it's really 50-50 on Cubs Twitter. It seems like people are either for it or against it. It's the closest thing to a political race I can really say, because it's just so divided. And what would it look like if a guy like Trevor Bauer was on the Cubs? And have we maybe misunderstood Trevor Bauer? Is he actually a really huge asset? And the media has just taken it all out of proportion. I'm going to be talking to Austin Shoemaker. He is a guy that's doing content with him every single day. We're dropping that episode tomorrow. Do not miss it. Make sure to put that on your calendar. Now, with everything else, because we got a lot of stuff to get to, I'm going to try to keep this under 30 minutes, but there's so many exciting things right now going on with the Cubs, which is a lot better than before the winter meetings, right? We were excited about Eli Morgan and Carson Kelly and, some of these minor moves. Now it's the big stuff. Kyle Tucker aftermath. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Cody Bellinger. Will the Cubs keep him? What will the lineup look like with him or without him? Michael Busch at third base, how Cubs Twitter is losing their minds on if he can and cannot play third base. Jesus Luzardo, is that a smart move by the Cubs? Are they going to be giving away too much? And other moves coming? Well, yeah, it sounds that way. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The very first thing I want to talk about is the Kyle Tucker aftermath. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people are very disappointed, including myself, that we had to give up a top prospect for Kyle Tucker and Cam Smith. Aside from Matt Shaw, this is probably like the guy that you're thinking to yourself, I see this guy being a successful Major League Baseball player, because in 2023, Matt Shaw climbed through the ranks very quickly in the Cubs minor league system. And then in 2024, Cam Smith kind of did the same thing. Both were first round overall picks. Kudos to the Cubs scouts and the Cubs drafts people to be able to get back-to-back really great picks. But he's still a prospect. He's played all of, I think it's 30 plus games at the minor league level. There's a lot of experts out there, not Cubs fans, a lot of experts that you need to go watch, and they'll be telling you all day long the Cubs came out as winners on this. Don't listen. I love baseball trade values. In fact, we're going to go to baseball trade values to look at the Jesus Luzardo trade here in a second, but baseball trade values is flawed, okay? When it comes to this trade for the Cubs of getting Kyle Tucker, many experts out there think the Astros did not get enough. Hayden Wesneski, who's been up and down through the minors with the Cubs to the majors, has struggled against left-handed hitters, gives up a ton of bombs, and then he had some flashes of greatness. Isaac Paredes, the Cubs will not miss him because his bat doesn't play at Wrigley. I hope he has a wonderful rest of his career at the Crawford boxes at Minute Maid Park. I think that's perfect for him. I think he's going to probably hit 250, 260 and have 30 plus home runs every year, but that wouldn't translate to Wrigley. So who cares? Then there's Cam Smith. I can't tell you how much we would be kicking ourselves if Cam Smith turned into another Brennan Davis, another Felix PA, another insert name of a prospect that didn't pan out, Matt Mervis. All those great people, by the way. I met Brennan at spring training this last year, and he has had the most bad luck of anyone that I could probably think of in terms of guys that deserve to have success and just haven't had it. If that happened to Cam Smith, and we found out 2 years down the road when Cam Smith is either injured or he's struggling, that we could have traded him for Kyle Tucker, there would have been a pitchforks going up to Jed's front door kind of moment for Cubs fans. You can't deny that that's the truth. But now we trade him and we're already saying, okay, well, he's the next big thing. And we're only going to get Kyle Tucker for quote unquote a 1-year rental. There's so many things that could happen with Kyle Tucker. I'm putting it at a 5% chance that he signs an extension with the Cubs. That's how little I actually believe that he's actually going to sign an extension. But a lot of things could happen. A lot of stuff could go on between now and the end of 2025 that either A, puts us in a really opportune position to sign Kyle Tucker to an extension. What if he has a Cody Bellinger type of year? What if he has the same type of year he had in 2024 where he lights the world on fire but only plays in half the games? And now you can say, hey, listen, dude, that $500 million for 10 years that you were looking for, it's not going to happen, but we will give you 4 years at, call it 160, right? That could happen. The worst thing possible that could happen would be the Cubs are not in contention or a 500 team. And this was the wrong choice to go all in on 2025 with this kind of move. And then they trade him at the trade deadline to a legit contender and they get a bunch of stuff back. And it's like the trade never happened, right? You had a guy who a bunch of fans bought the shirts, the jersey for a little bit. It brought people in the stands. You lost a couple prospects, you gain a couple prospects. It's an even kind of situation. I could see that happening. I could also see that the Cubs make it to the playoffs this year and are just a few pieces short. And Tom says, you know what? It's time to open the checkbook. I don't really put a lot of weight in that. So don't take those words and be like, oh, this guy thinks that Tom's not cheap. I think Tom could be opening the checkbook a lot more, but there's a lot of things that could happen. So don't pigeonhole this into a 1-year rental quite yet. A lot of the experts, though, what I really want to enforce on you is that they think that the Astros could have gotten a lot more. When you look at the Juan Soto trade, the Cubs got away with not having to give away a future ace, without having to give away guys that were established veterans. There was so much in that Juan Soto trade. And when you look at the 2024 numbers of what Kyle Tucker put up, the adjusted OPS and a lot of the things that he did in a very short amount of time, it's Juan Soto-esque, guys, with speed, with better tools in the outfield. That's what Kyle Tucker has the chance to be. So with all that being said, I'm going to bring up some things, especially right now, that are probably going to bring up a lot of disagreement. And before I do, why don't you just go ahead and comment and subscribe? Make sure you like this. Any of those 3 actions, comment, subscribe, like, would be very helpful for this channel. Thank you so much. All right. Will the Cubs trade Cody Bellinger? Recently, John Heyman has continued, and Joel Sherman continued to post about this on Twitter, that the Cubs are essentially not wanting to eat any of the Cody Bellinger contract. And for that reason, they're willing to take some scraps from the Yankees in the form of Will Warren, who's kind of a reclamation minor league project. If they can do that, right, it sucks. You don't really like it, but it's a salary dump for a team that appears to now be ready and willing to spend money where they need to. There's been reports today from Bleacher Nation and from Bruce Levine about Kirby Yates, a legitimate closer. We'll talk about him towards the end of the show. But the Yankees are not quite there. They're saying, well, we want the Cubs to eat. There's been reports right around $10 million. I think that would be crazy. If you are going to do that, then you need to include some sort of legit MLB ready, either prospects or MLB ready players right now. So that's where the Cubs are at in terms of getting this deal done, not getting this deal done. Either way, I would say I'm at about a 60%, probably more. I would say I'm at about 65 to 70%. I'm pretty sure Cody Bellinger will go to the Yankees. I'm about 80 to 90% sure the Cubs will trade Cody Bellinger no matter what, given where this organization is feeling like they're at. But what if we just look at what this lineup would look like without and then with Cody Bellinger? So on your screen, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see this lineup without Cody Bellinger. You're looking at some formulation of maybe Happ, Tucker, Seiya, Busch right at the top, followed by Swanson batting 5th, Nico at second base batting 6th, Shaw third base batting 7th, PCA center field batting 8th, and Miguel Amaya or Carson Kelly batting 9th in the catcher position. So you feel really good about Kyle Tucker being in this lineup now, right? But it still feels like there's a bat missing to force. I like Tucker either at number 1 or number 2. I got some flack on Twitter the other day that I was saying he should be a leadoff guy. I'm not saying he has to be, but I'm just saying let's take a legitimate look at it because he's a stolen base threat. He takes a lot of pitches. He doesn't strike out a ton, and he can get you on the board 1-0 right away. Plus, with a strong bottom third of your lineup, that could turn over and be some nice 2-out clutch hitting. That was my thoughts on Tucker leading off. At worst, I like him second or third. I don't like him batting fourth. I think when you start to look at it, if he's batting second, okay, say is it batting third, Busch batting fourth? I don't know. Tucker batting third, Seiya batting fourth. We saw a lot of that last year. We also were kind of unenthused by the lack of power from Seiya this last year. So it just feels like there's one missing piece. And I'm not saying it has to be Belly, but now you see that up on your screen here. If Belly was in this lineup, put a hypothetical of another big bat there potentially. Because now it's like, all right, well, maybe Jed would go out and get another big bat since he already got Kyle Tucker. Hap, Bellinger batting second, maybe. Tucker batting third. Seiya at DH number 4. Busch fifth. Third base. I know that just made a lot of people watching right now kind of throw up a little bit in their mouth. It's okay. We're going to talk about that in a second. Dansby Swanson, shortstop batting 6th. Nico 7. PCA 8. Miguel Amaya 9th. That changes the dynamic and the depth of this lineup dramatically. Now, you see, there's no Matt Shaw, so a lot of you are probably going to say, well, Matt Shaw, he's going to be a star. We don't know that, guys. We don't know that. As soon as Matt Mervis was called up, he struggled mightily while he was dominating in AAA. PCA sucked at the plate last year for the first half of the season, then figured it out. We can't put that much pressure on a new guy who has never had a single pitch in the majors. So, with all this to say, like, I like that lineup. And here's the reality is Tucker, with it not being for sure that the Cubs will be able to extend him, if you're looking at it, that was an all-in move for 2025, especially with a division that is getting weaker and weaker by the day. So then wouldn't that fit into Bellinger being back on this team and saying, screw it, we're just going to keep him. We don't like the fact that we're going to have to eat $5 to $10 million and only get Will Warren back from the Yankees. So we're going to eat it. We're going to keep Belly. We're going to put him at first base. We can rotate. There was someone on Twitter. I apologize to whoever it was, but I really like their idea of like him rotating in on some of the outfield positions as well to give some guys some breaks. You know, I think MLB players like consistency, but at the same time, that would be a really good secondary option for Bellinger. And this is also assuming that everyone is healthy. What happens when Seiya goes down with another oblique situation? Okay, now you got Bellinger at DH and you put Busch back at first. You call up Shaw, you put him at third base. What happens when Tucker has a 2-week little injury, an ankle thing? Okay, well, then you put Bellinger in right field. You call up Casey. You put Casey in every once in a while. Bellinger can be at DH every once in a while or first base every once in a while. There's so many options here if you have Bellinger in your lineup, which I really am starting to convince myself. I don't have to convince myself, but we've always known this. But after seeing Jed just very knee-jerk reaction, we're going to go trade Bellinger, we all kind of just figured, right? Cody Bellinger is on his way out. But I don't know. I'm starting to believe that Jed is saying, well, it's not going to be for just anything. It's got to be for the right price. And so this leads me to my next thing, which is that number 5 batter, Michael Busch, batting 5th and playing third base. Now, once again, I do not want this to be a, hey, you all are wrong and I've got the stage, so I'm going to tell you exactly how it is. No, I'm just going to share with you very quickly some of my thoughts about this whole situation, because this got a lot of people talking on Twitter. And what the screen I'm about to share is a Twitter feed from something that I posted yesterday. And basically John Heyman talking about the gap that I just mentioned of, Cubs not sure if the Yankees are willing to take on enough. I said, I'm starting to wonder if the Cubs are really considering keeping Bellinger and just moving Busch to third. Michael Busch was a second baseman and a first baseman primarily in the minors. And then in 2023, he played a lot of third base, both in the minors and in the majors. I believe it was because you had Muncy either down for a little bit of time or he wasn't performing. And so they wanted to try Busch out, one of their top prospects. But it wasn't good. I already know that. It wasn't good. So when you see these comments, and Busch can't play third base. Bryce Shaw's got third though. Let's see who else. And I think it was actually someone else here that the common theme that so some people thought it's not a terrible idea. Busch expressed not wanting to play third base. If that's true, Adam, Chai Sports Adam, then that's definitely going to be taken into consideration. Ron Swanson's mustache. Busch cannot play third base. Why can't people seem to grasp this? Okay. So this is what I want to talk about for a second. I get it. There's a lot of numbers that you look at and you say, this would not work. My whole thing on this is I'm not saying Michael Busch should play third base. I'm not vying for that. We went into 2024 with a project at third base in Christopher Morel and a project in first base at Michael Busch. One worked, the other one didn't. And we were kicking ourselves saying, why didn't we try this project out a year earlier with Christopher Morel at third base? And now that's one of our worst positions. I'm not saying that we go in with a project at third base. I am saying, why can't he be an option? Not the everyday guy, not even every other day, but 2 out of 7 starts. Maybe Matt Shaw is struggling. Maybe we sign one of the veteran third basemen. Johan Moncada has been talked about. I would love Justin Turner as a veteran as Matt Shaw gets comfortable at third base. One of them gets injured. One of them struggling. Matt Shaw is sent down or injured, and there's a situation where you need a third baseman. That to me would be a comfortable spot for Michael Busch. The problem I have is this word can't. The word can't implies that, to me, it's like he's a lefty, so he can't play third base. That makes sense. The dude is an infielder who wasn't expected to be a good first baseman. I was there at spring training. Watching him take ground balls at first base, I was nervous for us all. He looked stiff. He looked awkward. He looked like he was learning position for the first time. And then he goes out there and he was one of the better first basemen in the league after April. Why can't that happen at third base also? Okay, maybe he doesn't have that strong of a throwing arm. Maybe his footwork's a little funky. Maybe his, hand to glove transition time, it's not quite there yet. All those things were exactly where Nick Madrigal was at. Nick Madrigal didn't have the throwing arm. He didn't have the speed. He didn't have the range. He didn't have the athleticism. And guess what? By the end of 23, we were like, Nick Madrigal is actually probably our best defensive third baseman. Why? Because the dude put in the time, because he's a professional baseball player. He's not the random adult league, beer league pickup guy off the side of the road that you say, this guy looks like he's got an athletic body. Let's throw him into the majors. He's a professional baseball player, and then professional baseball player at many different lengths has abilities and capabilities and inabilities, right? They have the ability to be able to go out there and do things that you and I can't do. He can play first base. We've already proven that. Keep him there. If we need a third baseman, the word can't is not relevant in this conversation. The word can't means that he's a lefty, so he can't play first base. It means he's got a broken foot, so he can't go in there. It means he is a pitcher and he's never played in the field before. For his entire career, he's been a pitcher only. Those are what can't applies to. A first baseman can absolutely, right-hand first baseman can absolutely go play third base. Do you want it? No, not necessarily. But Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. All right, I'm going to get off my little rant there because that's all I have to say about that. Now, let's talk about Jesus Luzardo. By the way, let me know in the comments. I mean, again, we're here to have constructive arguments, disagreements, conversations, and that's one of them. Jesus Luzardo. Recently, Bruce Levine discussed that Jesus Luzardo is on the trading block. In fact, it was actually mentioned. I don't even think Bruce Levine was the first to mention. I think it was when we had Lance on the show from the winter meetings on Wednesday last week was the first time I heard about it. So kudos to Lance for being able to call this thing. But Bruce Levine came out a couple days later and said the Cubs are essentially talking to the Marlins about Jesus Luzardo. The Marlins want either James Triantos or they want Owen Casey. So let's do a breakdown of this, of if that's even worth it. First things first, Jesus Luzardo has had essentially 1 year where he's pitched over 100.1 innings, and that was in 2023. He was 10-10 with a 3.58 ERA and 178 and 2/3 innings pitched. Last year, a lot of injury issues back. I think hip flexor was one of them, some arm issues. All those things led him to only pitching in 66 and 2/3 innings in 2024. And a lot of that was impacting his stuff as well, as the strikeouts were down a ton. Now, what I love, and as I have the 2023 Baseball Savant red, blue, not so blue, kind of gray chart up. Essentially, red is good, right? We want to see a lot of red. And I'm really looking just at the pitching here. Fastball velocity in 2023, 96.7 miles an hour. That would automatically be the best fastball on the Cubs in terms of velocity. The chase rate, the whiff percentage, the K rate, all in the red. The walk rate is still fine. It's the 65th percentile. It's basically just above league average at 7.4% is what he's walking. The issue becomes the hard hit rate, the barrel rate, and the average exit velocity. Essentially, a lot of guys swing and a lot of them miss, but when they do make contact, they make contact hard. And just to add a little bit more to that, if we scroll down to his stuff in 2023, again, I want to ignore 2024 just because it was an injury-filled season. The fastball in 23, 96.7 was the average. Whiff percentage, 19.4%. The slider, he threw essentially 29% of the time, and it was whiffed at 51.8% of the time. That is beautiful. And just to compare it, our biggest swing and miss, I believe he was our biggest swing and miss guy from the starter's position, essentially, was Shota Imanaga. His fastball, the whiff rate was 17.6 compared to in the 19s for Luzardo. His best pitch for whiffs was the split finger. That was 43.1%. This is a whole 8% higher. This slider that Luzardo has is 8% higher for whiff percentage. The guy can make major league hitters look foolish. That's what I gained from this. Now, the numbers, not a whole lot to write home about. Mid-3 ERA, but when you look at what the Cubs pitching development has done, and especially today in a lot of different roles of other pitching staffs and pitching coaches, a lot of them are just looking at usage. And they're just saying, if we just change the amount that you use this pitch, here's what could potentially happen. So you could potentially see them say, hey, listen, in 2023, you used your fastball 45.7% of the time. In 24, you used it less and it was slower. So maybe we just need to tick that thing back up. Let's get you healthy. Let's throw the fastball more again. And you might see them say, hey, let's actually dial it up on the changeup a little bit more. We want to see that changeup and slider equal, maybe about 25% of the time each. You never know. Those are the things that they could potentially be looking at. But at the end of the day, what about the trade value? So we're at baseball trade values right now is what you're seeing on your screen. And a lot of Cubs fans are like, I don't want Owen Casey going to the Marlins for a guy that has been showing flashes of being an ace, but never has truly been an ace and has been injured a lot. 100%. I'm right there with you as well. I don't think I even want to say see James Triantos go there, because I really think that James Triantos, while I don't think he's going to get much playing time for the Cubs, I think he is a valuable trading chip that could go for someone with a little more certainty and a little less uncertainty. Plus, Jesus Luzardo, I believe, only has 2 years left of control. And that's one of the things that I think would not be as useful. We want to see someone maybe with maybe 3 or 4 years of control for a James Triantos type. So Baseball Trade Values thinks this is a really good trade for the Cubs. They're giving Jesus Luzardo a 21.9 surplus rating, whereas James Triantos only has 13.7. I don't know how much I agree with that, again, given just the health factor of Jesus Luzardo. So my question is, who else would you want to give away? Here's the top 30 prospects for the Cubs. I could see, and for those of you that are like, oh, trade Caleb Killian. Caleb Killian, he's number 30 on the Cubs top prospects. That's a guy that doesn't have a lot of value for other teams because he's never been able to put it together in the major leagues, or he's never been very healthy. So they're going to go for the bigger guys. They're going to ask for maybe the Michael Arias, but they're asking for position players right now. So I would say, who would be a position player that you would be willing to get rid of? Benjamin Cowles has been a guy that ever since getting traded by the Yankees to the Cubs in the Mark Leiter deal with also Jack Neely, has started to turn some heads. Would we miss a Benjamin Cowles? Well, I don't know. Is Nico Hoerner going to get traded? If Nico Hoerner's not going to get traded, I don't think we miss him. If he is, I think, this is the guy that you probably want to keep, especially if James Triantos is not in the deal, or just starts to show that he's not going to be a legitimate major leaguer. Benjamin Cowles, maybe a little bit more pop, maybe a little bit more from some other aspects of the game that you would want to keep around. But could that be a guy? Could we say, hey, what about Benjamin Cowles instead of James Triantos? And by the way, we'll also throw in, since you like left-handed pitchers, Drew Gray. I don't know enough about Drew Gray, but he's young. He's a high A player. I know there's been a lot of talk about him. I know there's been a lot of talk about, the Will Sanders of the world, the Brody McCullough. I don't think Brandon Birdsell would be a guy that you would trade in this kind of trade, but maybe you would. Or maybe just Jack Neely and Benjamin Cowles straight up. Just take the Mark Leiter deal junior trade and just flip it for Jesus Luzardo. I also don't know about that because Jack Neely has a really high ceiling, and the Cubs are going to need bullpen help based on where they're currently at. What do you think? Would you do Jesus Luzardo, a potential ace if the Cubs could get him healthy and on track, ace type of stuff, for James Triantos? Or would you like to maybe do, a couple guys for the Cubs prospect list? Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your comments. But hey, what's next? What's next for the Cubs? I do see a lot of things still left to go. Bruce Levine said it on 670 The Score. The Cubs are, or it might have even been on Marquee too, the Cubs are not done yet. There's lots of talks of Nico Hoerner. There's lots of talks of a third baseman. There's lots of talks of relievers. The most recent, Kirby Yates, who was legit in 2024. He's old. Who cares? If you're going in for all of 2025, then you go get this guy for 1 year, maybe a 2-year deal. Again, I don't think any of that happens, though, until the Bellinger thing gets figured out. If Bellinger's salary gets dumped, okay, go get Kirby Yates. If it doesn't get dumped, you got to spend 10 to 15 million on a 1 year, 2-year deal. AAV is 10 to 15 on a guy who's at the end of his career. I don't know. I don't see that happening. I don't see Jed and Carter doing that. I still think, even though you look at this and you say, well, are the Cubs all in for 2025? I still believe that the way that Tom and Jed operate, that they're still going to say, well, we're going to go into the season $10 million under the luxury tax, and then as we get closer to the trade deadline, then we'll put in some more chips. That's what I would imagine is still the case. I cannot imagine, even though it's Jed's contract year, even though they went and got Kyle Tucker, I just can't imagine them saying, hey, we're going to go all in from a financial standpoint to abandon everything, all the cautious stuff we've been doing. they seem too much like crawl, walk, run, one step at a time. We got to figure out this before we do this. So I just don't really think that that's going to be the case. But let me know what you think. Let's talk about it in the comments. This one, I'm expecting there to be some comments. So we'll see what happens. Make sure you go check out the video tomorrow with Austin Shoemaker as I interview him about Trevor Bauer. Cannot wait to see what you have to say about that one as well. Setup Nation, I'm going to go put my arm on ice. We'll see you on Wednesday as well, live with Lance Brzezowski. Maybe a trade or something will be done by then.